G'day, this is Tiny Cat here for MiDFur on Air and MiDFur 2010. I'm sitting here with Stan Sakai. If you had to explain Usagi Yojimbo to someone who has never heard of it before, and in just a few sentences, how would you really describe it?
Well, Usagi Yojimbo is a samurai rabbit. His adventures take place in 17th century Japan. And it's a fantasy series, but it's based upon the history and culture of Japan. So, there is a lot of research to be done.
Yeah, I noticed it's a mix-up of historical and mythological Japanese style, which is quite good. How would you say it all started?
Well, I grew up reading comic books, and I have an art degree, and I wanted to do a series that was inspired by a real samurai named Miyamoto Musashi.
Yes.
But sketching my sketchbook, I drew a rabbit with his ears tied up into a chonmage, a samurai topknot. And that's pretty much how Usagi was born. And instead of Miyamoto Musashi, my character's name is Miyamoto Usagi. Usagi means rabbit in Japanese.
Yes, it's a very clever pun. I love furry puns. Last year, Usagi Yojimbo turned 25. That's something that very few comics can actually claim about themselves, and with no real signs of slowing down. What's the secret ingredient that has given him his lifelong span and huge following the world over?
Well, I own Usagi, and I'm the sole writer and artist for Usagi, so it's pretty much my vision. So there has been a consistency throughout the entire 25, 26 years now. And pretty much I write for a readership of one. I write for myself. And these are the kind of stories that I would like to read. And I'm just gratified that so many other people like to read the same kind of story as well.
So you aim for something that would impress yourself, and you're quite happy that it meets other people's standards, would you say?
Oh, of course, yes.
Oh, fantastic. Now, Uncle Kage mentioned last year about the character Professor Cockroach from the film Monster vs. Aliens, if you're familiar with it, and how Professor Cockroach was voiced by Hugh Laurie. He also likes to say that he thinks the ideal voice for the Uncle Kage character would be Kelsey Grammer, also known as Frasier, and also known as probably one of the greatest cartoon villains of all time, Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons. When Usagi appeared in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV show, he was voiced by Townsend Coleman. Now, appropriately for the MiDFur heroes and villains, he's also best known as the voice of the Tick. How did you react the first time you heard a voice actually come out of Usagi's mouth, and was it how you'd imagined his sound?
Well, Usagi does not really talk when I write. Yeah. It's more visual. And I did not have a voice for Usagi in mind. Actually, when I met with the producers, we talked about what sort of voice would Usagi have. And we talked about everything from giving him a Brooklyn accent to have him speak in Japanese with English subtitles with his mouth, or have him dub with his mouth going wrong. But we finally chose upon this voice. It's very much like Master Splinter. Okay. Maybe a little slower, or just a variation of Splinter's voice, and a lot because they already had the voice actor on the contract, yes. And so he was easy to get.
Fair enough. Now, after all these years, as you were saying earlier, Usagi Yojimbo is still pretty much done the same way as the way that you started out doing it. You write it and illustrate it yourself. Why has it stayed that way?
Because it's my character. Yeah. And I have a particular type of vision for him. I have talked to other people, such as movie producers and things, and because Usagi's been optioned a number of times both for TV and for cinema. Yeah. And many times their idea of Usagi is completely different from mine, and I'm actually surprised. But Usagi's my character, and it's pretty much I do whatever I want.
I think a lot of furries will relate to the points that you've just brought up there, and the way they'd feel about their own characters. So that's really interesting. What do you suppose inspires you the most? Do you read other comics and graphic novels that push you to keep your own level of quality in check, or do you prefer to block that out and keep doing what you like doing, a bit separate from everyone else?
Well, I read very few comic books, actually. I read Gru the Wanderer a lot because I like Sergio's artwork, and also I'm the letterer for that. Jeff Smith's Bone series and Rasso is just fantastic. But I don't read the mainstream books. There are a few other things I read. I like Simpsons comics because I'm a big Simpsons fan. Okay. But for the most part, they don't influence me as far as what to aspire to. When I read mainly novels and things.
Okay. Unless you take on full stories that way. It's pretty interesting. As someone who's been really at the heart of the comic industry for the last quarter of a century, how have you stayed in the world of comics as it changes over time? And like, what do you think has really stayed the same, and what's really come and gone, and what do you want to see come back to the industry?
Oh, come back to the industry, more creativity. Many of the, especially the mainstream, it's pretty much just doing the same thing that's been going on for so many years. And it's, we need a bit more creativity. The Mouse Guard came out about a few years ago. It's a Mice Warrior series by David Peterson, and that's unique. But then, it's very rare and far between. When Jeff Smith came out with Bone, that was a revelation for the entire comic book industry. Same thing with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That created pretty much a black and white boom, and because of that, so many of the books were able to be published and remain in publishing.
So it's an interesting kind of creativity you'd like to look for more in original material. Fair enough. Okay, now you travel a lot. You go to a lot of furry conventions as a guest of honor all over the world. What is it about the furry fandom that you find so appealing? Like, I mean, you live in California. And as we all learnt from the movie Inception, the LAX to Sydney is one of the longest flights in the world, if not the longest. Now, what was the appeal to really come out all this way?
Well, I have been wanting to visit Australia for such a long time, and when this invitation came, I had to jump for it. And also my wife too, she said, well, you're not going without me. And I've been having a great time in Australia, both in Sydney and in Melbourne. Though I was promised really good weather. I was told when I was invited, oh yes, well, your weather would be perfect. It's the start of summer, no rains at all.
It's pretty good right now, but every time I've come to Melbourne over the last 4 years, it's always been shocking. It's always been horrible. So yeah, I can relate to that. Now, as an impartial outside observer, how do you find the furry fandom here in Australia differing from what you've seen in the rest of the world?
Well, you guys speak differently.
We sound funny.
You sound funny.
You sound funny compared to me, mate.
But no, they're pretty much all the same. It's you have a love for the furry genre, and I have found this is my fourth furry convention this year. And I love going to these conventions. I've always been treated very well. The congoers have always been exceptional as far as treating everyone with dignity and friendship and intelligence. I've really been impressed.
So you think we're a bit more clever and well dressed than the rest of them that you've seen?
I didn't say well dressed. You're putting words in my mouth there, but clever, yes.
Okay, now one of the things that I find about a lot of samurai stories, and also in Usagi Yojimbo because of the period it's set in, the characters that are in it, everyone really hangs all of their honor on their next duel. I was wondering if maybe you wanted to incorporate something a little bit more friendly, maybe even into Space Usagi, but you're familiar with this? This is the brofist. I was thinking maybe Usagi could have something like the bro katana. Would you think of something like that? Would that be interesting?
No, because it was a matter of honor if your swords even touched another person's. There was a cause for a duel back then.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, if you were a pen pal, you were only pen pals as your samurai rival because you hadn't met yet. All right, fair enough. Now, stepping away from Asagi completely, if you could be a superhero or a supervillain, which would you be, and what superpower would you have?
Oh, superpowers. I would like to be able to alter time.
Would you do it?
Slow up time with me as a focus, so I can work in slow time or quick time. That way I can get caught up on my deadlines.
And you'd use it for good?
I would use it for good, at least to get me out of my deadline predicaments, because it seems I'm always creating deadlines now.
Fair enough. Well, I hope you have a great time at the rest of the convention. Thank you so much for taking the time out to interview us for Actor and MiDFur. Cheers.